Welcome to the Women and Waves podcast, where we discuss all things surf and lifestyle, from female founders, top surfers, and inspiring people. Today we're talking to Grace Kingswell, a nutritional therapist sharing all her secrets about winter wellness, her move from the city to Cornwall, and how important it is to catch the sunrise each day. Stay tuned and enjoy. Welcome, Grace. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, babe. How are you?
Yeah, really good. Thanks so much for coming on our Series 1, first live episode of Women and Waves podcast. How's it feel?
Woo! I didn't even know this was a podcast. I thought it was just like a chat. I think it's so cool that you've started a podcast.
Well, we've had a pipeline for a while, so it's going to be a slow burner. But yeah, we're going to start it, and hopefully it will take off, and we'll be interviewing many people like yourself. So I guess I was going to say the main sort of focus for this chat is generally for just winter wellness. And to keep everyone informed. Obviously you're a nutritionist, which I'll get you to explain a little bit more in a second. Basically, Grace, tell us about yourself. Like, what tell us all about your tickets that you have.
Cool. So I'm a nutritional therapist, actually, rather than a nutritionist. They sound the same, but they're quite different. A nutritional therapist is far more likely to see patients with like unexplained illnesses, people that are just suffering with symptoms and have been for years and they don't really know why. And it's about finding the root cause of what's going on. So typically I see a lot of patients with like unexplained gut issues, really bad digestion, or the other end of the spectrum, kind of autoimmune conditions and serious stuff like that. A nutritionist is mainly just, this is what you should eat. And well, that's a very, very simplistic view of things, but I just thought I'd like say the distinction. So I work with patients one-on-one, all via Zoom these days, thanks to COVID. And apart from that, I also have a podcast. I teach breathwork. I do a bit of acupuncture as well. And still do some like writing for health and wellness brands, and I'm on Instagram, which I really enjoy, and that's about it really. Just kind of a few fingers in a few pies, but all to do with sort of health and wellness and being outside in nature.
That's so cool. And like you do so much. How do you what's sort of your main focus? Would it be your nutritional therapist? Like, is that your sort of day to day?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, I'd say so. It's when I started, so I think I qualified a few years ago now, but it was a really, really slow burn to begin with, like getting patients on the books and, marketing yourself and all of that stuff. And, the biggest way that I market myself is Instagram and my podcast. And as I'm sure you know yourself, both of those two platforms are slow burners. Yeah. So as things have kind of got more busy for me over the last year, I'd say 50% of my time is patients, and then the other 50% is like doing sort of creative stuff, so Instagrammy things. I do a lot of writing and copywriting still in the health and wellness space. And I actually really love that it's so varied, because I think if I was just to do one, I'd go a bit stir crazy. So like if I didn't have the podcast, for example, I would like really feel like I was missing out. So,
and they all sit really well together, don't they? Like they all sort of like one thing can all benefit, if someone came to you, then maybe just not sort of nutrition would be their answer. Whereas maybe you could bring your breath work into it and say, maybe try this, I guess. So.
Yeah. And actually, that's definitely the way I work with people. They don't just go away with like a supplements prescription. I do a lot of functional testing. So whether that's like bloods or stool analysis. And then, if they need it, I'll send them breathwork videos, or when I used to be able to see people in person, I'd always stick a few needles in. Yeah, just for fun. But sadly, obviously at the moment, I can't do that.
Does that mean that people are sending you stool samples over over COVID?
Thankfully not to me personally. It's all, so it's amazing. It's all done remotely. The lab sends you your test kit, you put it into a cup, and then you send it off for analysis, and then they send me the results.
Thank God.
Yeah.
So how did you get into nutritional therapy? How did you get into it?
I don't know. I think no one knows what they want to do when they grow up, do they? I mean, and I think if you do know, you're incredibly lucky. And I always felt like that at uni. I studied modern languages, and the friends of mine that were studying like law and medicine, I sort of really envied them, because I just, there's such a clear career progression. You're going to be a doctor, or you're going to be a lawyer. And for me, it was always, I wanted to do something really creative. But I didn't really know what that was going to be. I studied art at school, but I actually ended up going to Cambridge Uni. And when I got an offer from Cambridge to read languages, I just thought, oh, you just don't turn that down, even though I really wanted to go to art college. So I sort of parked the creative element and thought, I'll do these 4 years, and then I'll be so hireable because I will have graduated from this great uni, and like everyone will want me. And like, just no, it doesn't happen that way. And I think for me, I was never very well growing up, always had health issues as a youngster. And then kind of in my teenage years and early adulthood, I was really into kind of food and nutrition, because I personally felt like crap all the time. And I was obsessed with trying to figure out why. The only tangible thing that I could assume it was my diet, even though my diet was actually really good. So I kind of I had like a few health hiccups, a few.
How old are you about now? Like, how old are you when you
how old am I now? I'm 29.
How old were you when you feeling like your health issues you include on, like, it could be my diet? Because that's not a thing, like, as a 20, in your early 20s, for example. I know my diet was definitely like the last thing on my list that I was thinking about.
Yeah.
That's so good.
I think I was always thinking about food and health, because my mum brought me up that way, like really good wholesome food from a youngster, like nothing processed. And then I had this huge ovarian abscess when I was 17, and I wound up in hospital. And then after that, I just felt like an ill person. And I don't know, I guess it's just kind of one thing after another. And then when I was 22, I had another like gynecological issue, and I ended up having my tubes removed in hospital. Wow. And then I was just struggling so much. I just graduated from uni, I was living in London, and I just couldn't cope with life.
Yeah, a lot going on.
And then I think I first started getting properly interested in it because I went on antibiotics for my skin. Like I didn't have acne, I just had bad skin, as you do when you're a teenager or young adult. And I couldn't see past that. I was just like, this just needs to be gone. Like, this is making me so unhappy. So I went on antibiotics, and I just kept calling up the GP and asking for repeat prescriptions. And I did this for about over a year. And as you might know, Rach, but maybe others don't, antibiotics have a really like broad spectrum killing effect in your gut. Mm-hmm. So not only do they get rid of the bad stuff, they also get rid of all the good stuff. And we know now that our gut health is so important for our overall well-being. So I basically obliterated my gut flora, and then just started getting all of these health problems, like digestive issues, really bad bloating, like terrible trapped wind, food intolerances. My eczema on my body just went crazy, and I was so tired and really happy.
It even brought on food intolerances.
Oh yeah. Oh, 100% it will do that. And it was then that I went to find a nutritional therapist, functional medicine doctor, and started working with her. And it was a long road to recovery. But during the course of that, I just started thinking, I want to be able to do what you're doing. Like, this is so interesting how she knows what's going on in my body. And we've done these tests and, all the supplements and everything. It was just fascinating. And then I just, finally realized that is what I'm obsessed with. Like, I just am obsessed with health, and I love talking to people and making them feel better. So I started studying myself, and that's kind of it, really.
That's so cool. And it must be so, like, must be so awesome when you have, say, a client and then you finally find what's the right boxes to tick for them, and then they're literally a completely different person. Like, I've been in a position before where I just had to find the right diet for myself, and it's horrible when you go over that stage. You're like, I don't know. There is only one way. It's just a mirror, isn't it? Really. So you literally
and I think, you know,
just telling them.
Yeah, and I think, you know, these days people get most of their information from social media. And of course, what works for one person does not work for another. And, you know, there are very, very, very simple principles to health and diet, but in the world of social media, it's just like all smoothie bowls and porridge, and, you know, it's not right for everyone. So I think it's important to actually just learn about your own body.
That's really cool. One of the other big things, like big changes that's just happened, is that you recently moved down to Cornwall. Hey.
Yeah, so happy to be here.
How did that come about?
Well, I was going to say it's because of COVID, but actually my husband and I were thinking about it for ages. So my husband's Australian, and we met in London, where he came over on the youth visa, and he was there for a couple of years. He's a musician. He was just playing gigs and having a great time. And we met in London, and his visa was up for expiry. So I just thought, why not? I'll move to Australia with you. And we lived in Sydney for a year, and we came home. We got married when we were in Sydney. And we came home, and London just, I don't know, I think, so Nick grew up on an island surrounded by the ocean, and he's a surfer. And I've always been really into wild swimming, and I just love water. I love being in water. And so we started sort of thinking about like maybe moving to the coast, but it took us so long because of my family. We just felt like, you know, if we live in this country and we're that far away from his family, we should at least be near mine. And my family from Kent, which is the complete opposite end of the country to Cornwall. So originally we were looking in Wales, because that's a bit closer, and then we were looking in North Devon, but just nothing felt right until we came here, and it just all made so much sense.
And you've got a community around you now as well, which is rad.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, like, however much you love your family, and I love mine so much, you have to do what's right for you.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's so nice. I just love it here.
That's so cool. So now with your new little life in Cornwall, what does a normal day-to-day life look for you? Like, what happens? Like, when you wake up, like, I know you're a good sea swimmer. Like, what's your daily routine look like?
So wake up usually quite early, and
what time are we talking?
Really depends, but since the clocks changed a few weeks ago, I'm like stupidly early, like sometimes 5:30. But most recently, I think I've gone back to like 6:30, 7 now, which is a bit more sociable. I also go to bed really early too because of my blue blocking glasses, but I'm sure we'll talk about that later. So I wake up and I drink water because that's really important after 8 hours of dehydration overnight. And then I go outside. I usually make a decaf coffee, which is like a little ritual of mine in the morning, or a green tea, and I take it outside with me. And if it's a really cold morning, I'll just stand with my cup of tea and just like walk around the garden a bit. And if it's not too cold, like this morning, I'll do my yoga and like morning movement outdoors.
Yeah.
And that's just really important to me, to get outside and get some natural light in my eyes first thing, just from a health perspective, well-being, mental health, and just it really boosts my mood. And then I'll probably check my girls' WhatsApp group and see if there's either a surf or a swim happening.
Nice.
And yeah, might run down to the beach at St Agnes for a swim, or if there's swell, I might go for a surf. And then it's a really, really decent breakfast, eggs, veggies, avocado, fats, and then get to work, really.
Nice. And your breakfast is, so tell us a little bit more about your breakfast. Like, so that's like,
so
you just said eggs and vegetables together in a sentence, and that doesn't normally, I would never really put those two together for breakfast. So tell us a little bit more. So
the breakfast is really, really important to me, and actually every single patient of mine goes home with a prescription for this particular breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
We've kind of labeled breakfast foods in the West, and you know, these breakfast foods are like oats and bread and toast and muffins and pastries,
Yeah.
and it's all just a sugar hit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the reason why we all feel like that in the morning is because our brains run on glucose, and glucose is sugar. So it is natural to crave like sweet food in the morning.
Yeah.
But actually what we need first thing in the morning are the fundamental building blocks of life. You know, our bodies cannot survive without protein. It's fundamental. So a good protein-based breakfast with healthy fats like olive oil or avocado and some leafy green vegetables for like that density of nutrition is a fantastic start to the day. And it also balances your blood sugar, which is such a issue in modern day society. You know, when you start your day with that bowl of porridge topped with loads of fruit and drizzled with maple syrup and nut butter and blah blah blah, it's so tasty, don't get me wrong. It's so tasty. Yeah. But it will, and you'll feel fantastic afterwards because it'll spike your blood sugar like this, like super high.
Yeah.
And then it will crash at like 11 a.m. and you'll feel that you need a little snack or a second coffee. And actually, if you have the protein-based breakfast, which for you could be like tempeh or tofu or something veggie-based, you will be full till like 1 or 2 p.m. Your energy levels will be stable. It means your hormones will, you know, you've got better hormonal production. It's just so important. So, and obviously I do deviate. Like at the weekends, of course, maybe I'll have some sourdough toast or something a bit naughty. But generally for me, it's a protein-based breakfast.
That makes sense. That definitely makes sense. So do you add anything different as we come into winter? Like, is there any other ingredients that you would sort of add to your diet a little bit more?
I think for me, it's transitioning to warmer foods in winter, just to like keep that like internal sort of warmth and fire. I'm really into traditional Chinese medicine, and for them, it's like, you know, that internal warmth is so important to kind of keep in the winter. So I won't have any salads, I won't have any cold smoothies. It'll be like soups and stews. I do like always do like a roast on a Sunday and boil up some bones for bone broth, and you know, always trying to include like lots of ginger and turmeric, and then, you know, in the winter months where there's colds and flus and God forbid viruses flying around, loads of fresh herbs like oregano and thyme are amazing. And yeah, just drinking fluids, and it's just, you know, sensible things. Like I'm not one for, you know, loads of potions and superfoods and blah, blah, blah. It's just sensible, clever nutrition, eating seasonally, buying good quality produce, organic where you can. Yeah, the fundamentals really.
That's really good. So for someone who's really looking, because obviously with COVID around, people are quite paranoid about getting sick and everything. If you had to just give them 3 ingredients to add to their diet for winter, what would you suggest? It must be quite hard just to add 3.
So I'm going to add 3 things, but none of them are food related.
Okay.
So the first thing is sleep.
Okay.
So sleep is like the best immune system tonic out there.
Yeah.
It is absolutely fundamental for maintaining a healthy and functioning immune system. You know, during the winter months, and especially if you're ill or worried about getting ill, sleep like it's your job. That is like number 1.
Like it. Right.
The second thing is the second thing is anything you can do to reduce stress. Again, stress is like, sorry, I keep saying like, stress is another thing that is anathema to a healthy immune system. So whether that's breath work or yoga or getting in the ocean for a swim or a surf, try and do something every day that you know just takes the lid off your stress cooker. Mm-hmm. And then the third thing is diet related, but it's quite a broad topic. Food and what you're putting into your body has always got to come back to color, diversity, and abundance. So are you eating a rainbow of foods every single day? You know, when you get to the end of the day, think to yourself, have I had one thing from every color of the rainbow today? You know, when you go to the supermarket, rather than buying the same vegetables, think to yourself, oh, I had aubergine last week. I'm going to try like cold kohlrabi or something that you don't normally cook with, because it's actually the diversity and the variety of foods that we need to maintain really, really good health, really, really good gut health. So yeah, it's often the case that you think you have a very healthy diet because you eat broccoli every day and you always have like brown rice and whatever. But actually, if you're eating the same food every day, even if it's healthy, it's not working. It's not as good for your body as you need it to be. So those are my three.
No, yeah, because everyone, and me included, I get stuck in the same sort of rut of the foods that we sort of normally eat. Luckily, my husband's really experimental with what we eat, but if I was up to cooking, I'd just be cooking my same old sort of staples. So that's a good way to do it as well. It's like obviously the colours of the rainbow and stuff. When you go there, be like, okay, I need something of every colour.
Yeah, it's a really easy thing to do. Like if you had aubergine for your purple one day, the next day can you have blackberries or something? Like super
That's
simple.
really cool. And would you you just mentioned there about the fruits for this season, the vegetables for this season. What ones would you go and reach for at the moment?
So autumn is just the best time for produce because it seems like everything is in season. So at the moment, I'm really loving squash and pumpkin and like all the root veggies.
Nice.
Loads of the brassica family are coming into season, and the brassica veg, so that's things like kale and Brussels sprouts and cabbage. They are all NRF2 activating, which is basically a very long-winded way of saying they really support liver detox. So brassica veg, incredible. And what else in season at the moment? Oh, apples. Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with apples. British apples, so good, and they're so good for you too.
I saw you were making a little apple crumble the other day. I was like,
oh, I know.
Yeah,
I make stewed apples every day for Nick and I make a crumble at least once a week.
Sorry, when you say stewed apples,
yeah,
tell me more. What is stewed apples?
Have you never had stewed apples? Oh my god, Rich. So you just peel. Okay, so the question is always like to peel or not peel the apple. So I'll just go into that quickly. Obviously, in the apple skin, you've got loads of pectin, which is a fiber that's insane for your gut health. So long as you're eating apples, like just, as you would a raw apple, when I make my stewed apples, I'm happy to take the skin off. So I peel the apples because it makes them stew better. And then, so like 3 or 4 big cooking apples, loads of cinnamon, some sultanas, and then you just chop them and put them in a pan. I just put a splash of water in and then pop the lid on and just let them steam, and they just make like a lovely stewy, hot stewed apples. Rachel, where have you been?
Don't know, there's just nothing I've really heard of. So then what would you have it for? Would you have it for like dessert or a snack or?
Yeah, so if you were making a crumble, that's what you would do first, and then you would put the crumble topping on top. But we just have, most of the time, we just have the apples, and then I put tahini on the top, and then some Oatly cream or like real double cream.
That's amazing. I'm definitely actually going to do that today. That sounds delicious.
Well, it's so comforting.
Yeah,
and it's amazing.
Perfect. And you use cooking apples for that? Good to know, because there's like heaps of cooking apple trees everywhere, and you're always like, I don't know what to do with all these apples. So earlier you were saying as well, just changing the subject slightly, because this is something I'm really, really interested about, because it's something that I don't feel it's been touched on much. And you were saying in the morning, the first thing you do is you go outside. And I've heard you talk about red light therapy. Could you explain red light therapy to us? Yeah, sure.
So as humans, we have evolved and adapted over the centuries to live in tune with the sun and light. It regulates so many systems in our bodies. The main one of those systems is the circadian rhythm, and the circadian rhythm regulates our sleep and wake cycle. But actually, interestingly, a lot of other organs are on these circadian rhythms. Like your liver, for example, is most active at like 2 and 3 a.m. in the morning. So anyway, the reason that the light picture is so important is because inside every one of our cells as a human, we have mitochondria, and mitochondria are like the powerhouses of the cell. They produce cellular energy, which then runs like every process within our bodies. And as humans, we have 2 energy sources. One is the the food that we put into our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And the second is actually light. So you know how in GCSE biology we learned that when plants need to make energy, they take carbon dioxide and water and sunlight, and
Mm-hmm.
they make carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
And in humans, our mitochondria and our cells can kind of almost do the same thing with the light. So the reason it's so important to get outside in the morning is just to activate those processes, but also because in terms of the sleep and wake cycle, daylight in the morning signals to our brain that it's time to be awake. And that means that melatonin, which is the sleepy hormone, if there's any like residual melatonin lingering around in the morning, you know, when you wake up and you're like, oh, still like half asleep, that natural light will just banish that. And it will also, if you get outside first thing in the morning, it means that your melatonin production in the evening is optimized so that you actually sleep better in the evening too. Now, we know how important sleep is for our health. It's so crucial. So anything we can do to kind of really optimize that and live in tune with, you know, these natural rhythms and stuff that we've evolved with is so important. The red light thing is to do with sunset and sunrise. So in the light spectrum, you know how we have yellows and greens and reds and purples and blues, and that full spectrum is what our bodies expect on a daily basis. The problem is that these days we don't live in tune with the sun. So, you know, how often do we see the sunrise? How often do we see the sunset? And the reason that sunrise and sunset are so important is because that's when we get most of the red frequencies of light. And those red frequencies have been shown to be really, really, really healing on the body. So the mitochondria really responds to that red light. It decreases inflammation. It's just
really
so beneficial for our health. Yeah.
Wow. That's
so beneficial. So I try and get outside first thing in the morning. I often miss the sunrise because I'm asleep, but that's why I have my red light device.
Yeah.
And I plug that in and get some time in front of that to kind of simulate a sunset or a sunrise.
So you have a physical red light that lights up your room in a certain color, and that's how you get your source if you don't, for example, catch the sunrise or sunset.
Yeah, exactly.
And what other sort of way, is there any other ways that you can get it from, or is it only from the early morning sunrise and one of those lights, or is there?
So no, that's pretty much it. So whenever you see the color red in the sky, then just that's it. So just look at it, like, and it's, you know, get your skin as much in the game as possible, get your eyes in the game. You know, sunglasses are just like the worst invention ever because
you're blocking it.
They block natural spectrum.
Can you get it through a window, or do you have to have it naturally in front of you, like hang your head out of the window?
Hang your head out the window.
Okay, so
all the way. All the way.
So basically one of the best things to do is to go and catch the sunrise, which is quite good nowadays because
it's not that early, is it?
It's not that so it's kind of like 7:30 at the moment. Very doable. So it's almost like getting out and amongst it and making you feel better. That's amazing.
Definitely. And then, you know, throughout the day, just outside as much as you can. You know, the problem is with us humans, we're super clever, and what we've done is we've isolated the blue fraction of the light. So in our lamps in the sky, in our phone screens, in our laptops, it's just the blue light. Whereas in nature, we would never have the blue without the purples and the reds and everything like that. Because even when you're outside at midday, you can't see that red light. You can't see the sunset. It's still there in the whole, you know, in the broad spectrum. So that's why the blue light thing is so damaging for our health, because it's isolated and it shouldn't be.
So with winter coming in, and obviously it's darker, so that means that we're putting our lights on more. We're probably sitting on the TV more. What would you suggest? Like, are you one of the people that turns everything off at night, like all your sort of phones and laptops and stuff, or, you know, do you have a fix to help it? Do you wear the blue light glasses?
So my husband Nick gets really cross in the evening sometimes, so I just go around turning off all the lights and he's like, I can't see. But no, genuinely, in the evening, we have like some lovely little fairy lights, and then just one side light, which we put on the floors. It's quite low down. It's like nothing like above our heads. And
So is that because it doesn't?
And then as soon as the sun goes down, so from kind of like, yeah, so like obviously in the evenings, we don't really want any blue light, because once the sun has gone down outside, physiologically speaking, we should be producing melatonin, which is our sleepy hormone, to make us fall asleep and like go to bed. But, you know, the sun sets now at like 5:30 p.m. or 5 p.m. And, you know, most of us don't go to bed till 10 or, you know, even later. And so obviously we then put all these lights on, but by having them like over our heads, it's almost, for our bodies, it's almost like sunlight in a way. So it's really confusing, like on a cellular level. So side lamps, low level lighting, and then I wear my blue blocking glasses, which have red lenses, and I look like a carbon copy of Elton John, but I'm so okay with that.
That's so good. I do have a copy of my blue light glasses, but I couldn't tell you if they had the red light in it. I'm not sure. But no, that's so interesting.
You'll know if the ones that you need have red lenses, like, so that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because these ones I have here, actually, these are supposedly blue light blocking glasses, but they're not, are they? Because if I can still see the color blue through my glasses, then they're not blue blockers.
No, and I've got, mine are just really dirty, actually. It just makes everything slightly yellow.
Yeah, so these will block they'll block some blue light. So I wear these during the daytime when I'm staring at my laptop screen. Mm-hmm. But at nighttime, I basically wear these, but with a completely red lens.
That's really cool. So interesting.
Yeah.
No way. It's
and if anyone wants recommendations of really good brands that do those, then they can hit me up. I've got a discount code for one particularly amazing brand.
Oh, cool. What are they called?
They're called Blue Blocks, and it's an Australian company. And they make really, really good ones. And also Swanwick, Swanwick Sleep, I think it's called. They also make really good ones. But there's a lot out there which are just cons. So you have to, make sure you're buying from a reputable brand.
Definitely. I just feel like red light stuff is just like such a thing that I've never really heard about, and since I've heard it, I'm like fascinated. It's like so true. Like every morning I sort of get up, I take the dog for a walk, and seeing the sunrise is like my most favorite thing to do in winter. Like I actually look forward. I'm like, I actually walk the dog when the sun's rising, and so it's really lovely.
So good. And how nice is it watching sunrise from the water as well? Like if you're out for an early morning surf. Exactly.
It's so nice. Another thing I really want to ask you about is your breathwork.
Yeah.
So what, if you had to sort of title it, I guess, would you be a breathwork teacher?
Yeah, or coach, or just breath worker. I don't know. Yeah.
What does that kind of like consist of? Like,
so it's pretty much just breathing, but it's using the breath to bring about physiological changes in the body. Mm-hmm. So the amazing thing with breath work is that, as I'm sure you know, most of us go around our daily lives in like a constant state of medium stress, that kind of like anxiety ridden fight or flight, that's just 21st century life. But the thing is that as humans, as we've evolved, we have all these different stresses in our lives, like whether it's a WhatsApp notification from our boss, or having a car accident or something like that. These are all stresses, but they're not forget the car accident. Well, I don't know why I said that. Most of the daily stresses that we have, like emails, WhatsApps, bickering with a partner, or whatever it is, it's stressful, but it's not life-threatening. Mm-hmm. But the problem arises because as humans, we still only have one stress response, but we have all these different new types of stresses. And that one stress response is fight or flight. Something is going to eat me. I've gone out hunting and there's like a massive bear. It's going to eat me and I'm going to die. Mm-hmm. Therefore, everything in your body shuts down apart from what is essential for keeping you alive at that time, which is usually sending glucose to your muscles so you can run away or like fight, keeping your brain working. But functions like the reproductive hormones, adequate digestion, those aren't essential in that moment. So often, because we're in this stress state all the time, our health really suffers. And the thing with breath work is that by using like a very parasympathetic breath, usually in and out through the nose, we can actually switch on the opposite side of that nervous system, opposite to fight or flight, which is our rest, digest, like everything's fine side of the nervous system. So it's a really useful tool for 21st century humans. It's wildly relaxing, and it helps us when we do the more stimulating types of breath, like the Wim Hof stuff. It helps you train your immune system to cope better with stress, so it's making us more resilient. If that'd
be another good thing to do sort of during winter as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Training to be more resilient, because I know I've literally recently just started, I think I'm on like day 5 or something of the Wim Hof thing, because I was like, everyone was talking about it, like, let me give it a go, let's see. And it's incredible how long you can actually so the Wim Hof experience, for those who don't know, it's generally, the method is you breathe in and out and then you do breath holds. That's just a small part of it. And it's incredible how, like, my first go, I held my breath more than I'd ever held it since, actually, weirdly, which was like,
it's because you're loading oxygen. So by doing that hyperventilating breath, like we're loading oxygen, so you can hold your breath for so much longer.
And I was just like, that's so weird, like I've never known, but I think it's because you're in such a calming place. And I was like, if we could take these techniques, maybe not so much the hyperventilating one, but maybe more of the breathwork one, into like surfing, when you're in that situation where you do get your fight or flight response in. That's it. It would work.
Well, I think in that situation, what you would want to do is focus on nasal breathing. So when you breathe out, in and out through your nose, it sends signals to your brain to switch on that rest and digest. So if you are really stressed, like you're just being hammered by the waves and you're just a bit like, oh God,
caught me inside, what am I doing out here? Oh my God, I'm gonna die.
It's basically me every time I surf. So in that situation, it's like long, slow inhale, long, slow exhale, and just keep it going in and out through the nose.
And fully calm down. Yeah, definitely don't try the Wim Hof one. For anyone listening, don't try the Wim Hof experience in water. It's definitely not to do then. No, just like hyperventilating in the water. No, don't do that. That's so interesting. That's so cool. Is that something you recently got into? Is that something you've been into for quite a while, or
a year or so, I'd say. I did my breathwork qualification about a year ago now, and just started teaching it on women's retreats before COVID hit, and now everything's on hold, but hopefully at some point again soon I'll be breathing with people in real life. I have a Patreon page where I put all of my like blog content, like health focused stuff, and I upload weekly breathwork videos. So I still do it all online for my Patreon community, but nothing in real life at the moment.
That's so cool. And where could we find, if we want to follow one of these breathwork ones? Like, I know personally I've had to like do some breathwork stuff because I used to get really anxious before driving, weirdly. I used to have full-on panic attack driving. It just came on really suddenly, like over a few years ago, and then all of a sudden I had to stop driving. I was just like, what the hell? And it just came up. So it's still, now I have to keep practicing the breath work for it as well, just because otherwise it happens. And it's so weird how your brain can just go snap something else. And it was just turning into fight or flight mode. But after talking to people about it, the breath work, it's just worked absolute wonders. And so it's better and better.
Well, it's all on. So all my breathwork stuff is via Patreon, which is behind a subscription wall. But the only reason I did that is because I love Instagram so much, but I like to just be me on Instagram. All of the like in-depth functional medicine, nutrition stuff, I just moved that over to Patreon because I thought like the people that are willing to, and it's not much, it's like £5 a month. It's either £5 or £10 a month. I really want to create a community that are engaged in that. And that just allows me to just be me on Instagram and not feel like, oh, I haven't posted anything about health today. And like all I've done is go for a swim. It's all on Patreon. Just search Grace Kingswell.
So your Instagram is Grace Kingswell, you in your daily life, what you're up to, all the fun stuff, your personal life and all the good stuff, whereas the Patreon's like your work, basically. It's your
and it's like every week they get a blog post and it'll be like, should you be supplementing vitamin D, or it'll be like, what is the gut brain axis, or what to do if you've got bloating and digestive symptoms. It's like useful health content. And then Insta is like, hey, I went for a swim. Great.
Look at my great face.
Yeah.
Just on the subject of vitamin D, obviously we can go check it out on Patreon, but I know the other day when we met up, you said something really interesting, and you said, even though, because the sun is too far away at the moment for us to get our vitamin D. So, and you said you recommended supplementing, which is so yeah.
I always think with things like this, test, don't guess. So so basically, as humans, we store vitamin D, but if you're the kind of person that always wears sunscreen when you're outside in the summer, you probably haven't synthesized enough to get you through winter. On top of that, vitamin D is really important for our immune systems. And, with regards to COVID, I wouldn't want anyone to be deficient right now. So get your levels tested. You can do that really quickly and easily online using a service like Thriver. They send you like a finger prick test in the post, a blood test in the post, basically. And then, you could think about supplementation with vitamin D3. That's the active form of vitamin D. I don't supplement myself, but that's because every day of the summer, when I can, I'm out in the sun, full spectrum sunlight, no sunscreen, not burning myself, but I make sure that I get it on my skin, and then I've stored it enough to get me through winter.
That's such a good point. So you're like fully absorbing it, so you don't feel the need to wear sun cream, which is great, because I don't ever wear sun cream either. But everyone's like, you should. But I'm like, but I don't go out in it long enough to fry myself, if you know what I mean.
And the thing is, it's all about tolerance. If you are the kind of person that is inside 360 days of the year, and then you spend your week's holiday in Greece over the summer and you sit out in the sun all day, of course you will burn without sunscreen. But I have like small exposure very, very often, and my skin is adapted and it copes with the sun, and I don't feel like I'm putting myself at risk. I've done all the research, I've read all the research papers, and I choose not to wear sunscreen, which I know I get a lot of hate for online. But if you go and do your own research and you read about it, you probably would change your mind too. There's so much crap in sunscreen, it's unbelievable.
So just because I know we're sort of running out of a little bit of time, I've got some questions for you, and I'm going to fire across them, and you're going to have to answer them as quick as you can.
Okay.
You don't have to answer them that quick. Just
so fun. Okay, go.
Okay. Winter surfing, love it or hate it?
I don't know yet.
Still thinking about it.
Still thinking about it. I love it. Love
it right now. It's been really good mild temperatures at the moment. It's been good. 3 activities you will be doing this winter.
Swimming in the cold, sitting in front of a log burner.
Nice.
And cooking lots of stews and going for walks.
Sounds perfect. Okay, 3 things you really struggle with in winter.
My feet warm. Getting myself in that mindset where I'm ready to go for a swim or a surf. So I always love it when I'm doing it, but it's just so hard to get out the door sometimes.
You have to drag yourself out of bed a bit for it, even though you know it's going to be good at the end of it.
Yeah, totally. And not like, I don't know. I was going to say not sitting on the sofa so much, because since we've moved to London, I know it's supposed to be quick, but since we've moved out of London and we have a log burner, I just find myself sitting on the sofa in front of the log burner for hours. And I feel like that's probably quite bad for me because I'm being a bit of a couch potato, but there we go.
I feel like when you do any outdoor activity, especially around the coast, whether it's going in the sea, a coastal walk or a surf, whatever, you literally have the ticket to sit on your ass for the rest of the day, surely.
Yeah. When we went,
I've done it.
I know. So after we went out the other day, like 2 days ago, I came home and I had to go to bed. I was so tired. And I spent like an hour in bed, just like getting my energy back. And then I was asleep for the rest of the day. But I think, when you're in the water for say an hour and a half and it is really cold, that your body takes a huge beating and it really depletes your energy reserve. So I just think, like, from a health point of view, just be kind to yourself as well.
Totally. And it's also like when you do a workout, for example, your typical gym workout and stuff, you're not constantly moving for an hour and a half, like, you know what I mean? You kind of stop and you kind of, whereas with surfing, you're constantly on the move, whether that's even sitting on the board and you're like claws engaged or whatever, or you're paddling to the next peak or whatever, you're constantly moving. So I always think, and then you're obviously cold, so then you're burning even more energy. So I think, winter surfing, just power sessions are the way to go. And
power hour.
This is my most favorite question to ask anyone, but it's 3 books that you would gift to someone else.
Okay, I've read some really good books recently, so I'm prepared for this question. Where the Crawdads Sing.
Oh yeah.
American Dirt, which I just finished reading and I absolutely loved. It's about Mexican drug cartels and the like migration problem, and it's the most fantastic story. And
cocktail book.
Yeah, and then I've just started Caitlin Moran's new book called More Than a Woman, and it's just fantastic. It's so fantastic. Her first book, which was called How to Be a Woman, and she wrote that when she was in her teenage years, I think. And then this one is about being a woman in your middle ages and, you know, coping with like marriage and kids. And there's just this one fantastic part about, she calls it the maintenance shag. And it's about like keeping the spark alive in a long-term relationship. And she's just so funny, and she's just the most incredible writer. So I really urge every woman to read that book.
That sounds really good, actually. More Than a Woman. That's really cool. Yeah. And who's it by? Sorry to say again.
Caitlin Moran.
Caitlin Moran. That's awesome. Okay, 3 things that have been game changing to you for 2020. So that can be an item of clothing or a gadget in the kitchen. What kind of things?
Okay.
Like, why have I only just got this year?
So my first thing would be toweling dry robe underneath regular dry robe, because let's be honest, they don't dry you, and then when you take it off and you've put it on when you're wet, it also doesn't dry. So
I thought of this, 'cause it's kind of like it's a microfibery kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know if you could hear that, but someone tried to call me. Very rude of them.
And it comes on the screen at the same time.
Yeah, sorry, Rach. So if I've been for a swim or a surf, I'll just get undressed underneath my toweling dry robe, and then it dries you nicely, and you can just put your big dry robe on over the top. And it also means you can chuck it in the washing machine really regularly. Yeah. So that's my top tip. And then a log burner and a really good fleece, specifically a North Face fleece that I'm so obsessed with right now, which I know you also have. I just feel like you need a fleece in Cornwall.
Exactly, you really do. Since the last couple of years, since being back in the UK, I will spend good amounts of investing money on good equipment to just have a time. I just invest in a really good, like, windproof, waterproof coat, which has been game changing. Just anything to make my life easier during this weather. And then it's like, nothing can stop me. Hurricane, I'm out there. Like, yeah,
totally. Because winter's fine if you've got the right gear.
Yeah, it's all about the right idea. And last of all, 3 things you want to do in the next year.
I want to swim in. Yeah, I want to swim in the Helford. I haven't done that yet.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I want to celebrate my upcoming 30th with friends and loved ones. I'm just sort of praying that we're not in lockdown.
That's January, right?
Yeah, January. Come on. And then the last thing is I want to actually do the surfing thing properly. Like, I want to be better. I've been trying for actually not that long, to be fair. It's just hard when so my husband's a really good surfer, but he and I grew up doing like all the sports, and I play like a lot of tennis and like a lot of other sports that I love, but I didn't grow up surfing. And trying to learn as an adult is so hard. But I'm so keen for us to be able to do that together as a couple. So I've been trying to learn, and I feel like I'm nearly there, and I've kind of almost cracked it. But I'm going to try and keep it up over winter. And yeah, I just want that like one wave where I'm just like, oh my god.
I know. You know what? I feel like surfing goes like this. It's like learning something new, all the excitement is amazing and you're loving it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it goes, God, I hate being a beginner. Oh, I hate
Yeah, totally.
I just want to be good. And then it all starts clicking and then you're like, this is sick again. I absolutely love it. And then you get another like stumbling block where you're like, I'm still not looking like that. Oh, I can't because that's a bit too big. And like you're at that like really
I know.
bit. And
I'm in that really annoying middle phase right now where I'm like,
practice and everything. And you're like, I don't want to go sure wins. It's like horrible.
I know, and everyone's like, oh, you just need to go out. But then like, I don't know. It's difficult because you get your confidence knocked, and also someone said something to me once I thought was so, actually, wasn't it you, Rach? You said that surfing's the only sport where the only time you get to progress and learn and get better is when you're on a wave.
Yeah.
And like you can't do anything else around that. But then it's really rare that you're on a wave when you're a beginner. Yeah. So it's actually very hard to progress.
I was actually speaking to my friend about this last night, and we're talking about when people paddle and bail. And there's been a lot of talk about that recently, about saying people shouldn't bail off a back of the wave. You just got to go for it. And it's kind of like really true, because the more waves that you go for, the more times you're going to practice, and the more you fall, the more you learn. So it's kind of like, it's the worst thing ever, but you have to get really comfortable. And this is again where the breathing technique will come in really well. It's okay to fall. It's okay to get ragged around like a washing machine underwater. Like, you will be fine. It's just being comfortable in that naturally an uncomfortable position. But once you get like, oh, actually this is quite fun, being tumbled around, doing whatever, it's actually good fun. But it's getting in that mindset of not being instantly scared. But yeah, it's that keep going, keep getting as many waves. And that's why we always say to like the guys that come with us, we're like, if you get on a foamy and you're catching as many waves as you can, you'll progress so much quicker than having a suggestively a smaller board where you're only catching half the amount of waves. So then you've only learnt like half the amount of like that you could have in a full sort of session. Yeah, it's totally. So true, and it's a brutal honesty. For most
and it's such a good. Yeah, it's so important, because that's exactly where I am now. For so long I've been surfing a 6'2", and I was like, I'm going to stick with this. If I just keep going, I'll just like get better on this board. And then you go out and you surf like a 7-foot foamy or something, and it's just so fun, and it just gives you all your confidence back. And yeah, it's just silly. I think we just need to get off our high horses a bit, don't we, when it comes to being a beginner. And being a beginner as anything as an adult is really hard, because that rational part of your brain is like, I don't want to fall off this wave, I might hurt my back, or it's just difficult.
Yeah, and it's like dropping your ego as well, and being like, yeah, I am a beginner, we're all going to start somewhere for sure.
Yeah, totally.
But it's also just remembering like surfing should always be fun. And I think it's so easy to forget that. Sometimes it almost feels like doing it out of like a chore just to get good sometimes, and I'm like, yeah. So Grace, we've been on for an hour. Thank you so much. It's been so interesting, and I'm like I'm definitely going to be getting up first thing in the morning and getting the sunrise in. I am so inspired. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Rach. It's been lovely to talk to you.
And you will have a lovely day. And are you going to get the sunset in as well? Do a double whammy?
Oh, I don't think I'm going to do sunset, but I might put my red lamp on. I'll probably be in front of the log burner at that stage. Or who knows, maybe I'll go out for a walk.
Lush. Have a lovely day, Grace. I'll speak to you soon. Cheers, babe.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Woman Always podcast. Tell us what you think in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more podcasts coming your way.